Yo, what's going on, everybody? Let me know if you can hear me okay. Let me know if you can see me okay. We are live right now on YouTube. We're live on Rockfin. We are live on Rumble. And we are live on Twitter. And if we're not live yet, we will be in a second. So be patient. Hope everybody's doing okay. I hope everybody enjoyed their weekend. Happy Easter. I know we had a very, very strange Easter Sunday for some people. Oh, it wasn't strange for me. I personally enjoyed it, but it was a day where 420 fell on Easter Sunday. And so henceforth, I will always refer to this past Easter Sunday as 4 Bunny. Happy 4 Bunny. Because that's the only way we can incorporate all those who celebrate. You know, we can't leave anybody out. What's up, Hexeth out? Oh, is Hexeth out? I know that they fired somebody from his staff recently because which I assume was a scapegoat. But after this recent news dropped about him messaging people in his family about the attacks in Yemen on the Signal app as well, yeah, I imagine he might be. But that would assume that powerful people in a position like his could be held accountable for doing the wrong thing. And if he gets fired, then a lot of people in that group chat would also have to get fired. So that's why I actually don't know if he'll get fired unless some news drop that he did get fired. Yeah, with that being said, want to do some shout outs, of course. Make sure y'all like this video. Make sure y'all share this video. Share. For real? I'm gonna fight my mouse. My mouse decided to just not have battery, just now. Decided, I'm gonna just not work. Cool. Oh, y'all give me 1 second. Gotta have battery for my. Gotta be able to use my microphone. Oh, my microphone's keeping my mouse. What the hell? What is going on here? There we go. That should work. Sorry. I don't know who decided to unplug my mouse today, but what the hell? For real? So you're not going? Okay, I'll figure it out in a second. I'm trying to figure out who's gonna plug my mouse, y'all. My mouse died on me out of nowhere just now. My sister-in-law was in here cleaning up my room, so I'm pretty sure it was her who did it, but it's cool. I just need to figure out how I'm gonna use my mouse because it's not working. Anyway, so yeah, we got an exciting show for y'all. We're gonna be talking about Trump and his recent attack on Harvard with the tax exemptions and all that good stuff. I'm sure a lot of y'all heard about that because he already talked about taking money away. He already announced that he was going to withhold federal funds, but now he's actually talking about removing their tax exempt status. And that actually has some pretty dire consequences if it were allowed to happen that I feel like we should be discussing because a lot of people are going to ignore it. Let's use this instead. A lot of people are going to ignore it. It's kind of a big deal. It's actually kind of a super big deal. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, no, Harvard sucks. I get it. Look, I'm not a fan of elite schools. Yeah, I'm multitasking right now. Sorry, y'all. I get it. Y'all not a fan of Harvard. I'm not a fan of Harvard like that. I'm not a fan of, elitism. But at the end of the day, it is a problem. And I'm going to explain why. We're going to talk about also Joe Rogan actually roasting Doug Murray for his little comment at Dave Smith. Like, you've never been to Israel. You've never been to Gaza. Like, that makes you an authority on any kind of issue. I mean, yeah, it could help. I'm not saying that like not going to a place, or I'm not saying like you shouldn't go to a place if you could, but like obviously in certain situations like this one with Palestine, I would say it's pretty justified actually for people to not want to go to a place where, especially if you're like considered a journalist or a pundit, like it's pretty obvious as to why you wouldn't want to go there, considering Israel is literally killing journalists at an exponential rate, historical actually, not just like in a year or two, like in history, they've killed more journalists than any other country has. So yeah, there's that. We're also going to talk about some breaking news that just kind of came across my desk. ICE just decided it was a good idea to arrest a U.S. citizen. It didn't hold them for 10 days, claiming that this person was an illegal immigrant. And we're also going to talk briefly about the Supreme Court and the El Salvador situation. Because, we definitely going to talk about it because I've been telling y'all, I've been saying since this whole thing started, I said, I don't know why everyone keeps forgetting. Like, everybody keeps acting like these courts don't exist. Everybody keeps pretending as if Trump can do what he wants to, State Department and executive branch can do what they want to, and that all this is just going to slide because maybe there's a bunch of Republican federal judges, or because they think they can bully the judges into giving them the results that they want. But I said, like, I don't care how many times y'all quote this State Department policy, the judges are going to come into play at some point. And at a certain point, their careers are on the line. Their reputation's on the line. When it comes across their desk, when the obvious is seen, they're going to be like, you have lost your mind. So we're going to talk about that too. First thing I want to get into, though, we definitely got to talk about this Joe Rogan roasting Doug Murray. I'm going to show you the clip first. Well, I'm going to show you that part of the clip from Joe Rogan Experience. I can't show you too much, obviously, because y'all know how YouTube be. But we definitely gonna watch that part. Because I remember Dave Smith's face when he's like, why are you looking at me like I'm like, oh, like why are you looking at me like it's crazy that I've never been to Gaza? I'm sorry. Like I have to know that I can't know that blockades are horrible and have been causing the Gazan people to suffer unnecessarily. Unless I've been there watching them suffer. Okay. 1 second, pull it up, y'all. And of course, make sure y'all can hear this too. Booyah. Make sure everybody can hear this. Oh, see, I wouldn't have been able to hear. All right, cool. So we're just gonna listen to this part. I don't want to play the whole clip. Y'all can go and watch it if you want, but we're gonna hear this part because it's kind of hilarious watching Doug Murray just like feign outrage because the experts. Dave Smith speaking like an expert hasn't been to Gaza.
Talk about it now. Have you ever been to Nazi Germany?
Of goods coming in. I've been plenty of
times. There was no deficit?
No, there are
no goods were kept out.
There are plenty. How many? Have you been to the crossing points?
No.
Have you been?
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now? Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? Are you allowed to have feelings about them?
You can't time travel, but you can. But you can travel.
Okay, but so what? So what's the point? Like,
no,
okay.
I find that
lots of people have been there and agree with me, and lots of people have been there and agree with you.
Yeah, but
so
if
I don't
you're
know
going to spend a year and a half talking about a place, you should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
All right. I just think this is a non-argument.
You don't think?
Okay. No.
Guys, in what world? Like just from this perspective of what I talked about in the beginning, in what world would anyone be okay with going to Gaza and like just thinking like there's a chance I'm not going to lose my life right now. Like, yeah, if I go there, I'm good. I'll be fine. I'll go there, record, give myself the authority to speak on this issue and then come back. No, I'm pretty sure any journalist that has not been 130% Zionist, which basically would make you a despicable liar, like in your coverage, because there's no way you could tell the story of this genocide, be a Zionist and not lie. Like, in what world would arguing for the other side mean you could feel safe enough to go to Gaza in its current state and not believe you're going to be targeted by Israel? Because you're going to be targeted by Israel. The amount of journalists they've killed are insane. Hell, if you're just assisting with aid, they'll kill you. They kill UNA workers without any type of punishment, any level of accountability. Why would Dave Smith, comedian, feel like it would be like necessary for him to risk his life to go there in order for him to be considered an authority on the issue? It would be amazing if he did. There are people who have done so. There are people going to like Lebanon during these wars. Been obviously people like Vanessa Billy and others who've been to Syria. Eva Bartlett been to Syria during the war. Like, yeah, that makes you a different type of person. But it also doesn't mean you can't speak on the issue and you can't, parcel what's evil and what's not evil, what's a war crime and what's not a war crime. Right? We all have the facts available to us, at least enough to know, not to mention the words of these people committing the crimes. Enough to know what is happening without you having to put your life in danger. And like Dave said here, like you gotta be in Nazi Germany to know like Nazi Germany was bad, right? There's some issues where, yeah, it is better. It's better if you have personal experience. Like when you're doing on the ground reporting for politics, it's better if you have personal experience. It's better if you've been somewhere personally, right? But it doesn't mean like I don't have to go to a place to know like genocide is bad. And also, technically, that's a logical fallacy. Technically speaking, that's an appeal to authority, and it's fallacious, Mr. Cambridge. But look at what Joe Rogan had to say. I was kind of surprised by this. I was surprised that Joe Rogan had the balls to say it, because Rogan sometimes he be on the he fence sits. Let's just put it like that. He tends to fence sit and play silly sometimes, but this had me weak.
Have you been there?
Right, that's a good point.
You haven't been?
By the way, how is he in all these wars? Can I just go to wars? By the way, how are you allowed to just go to wars? Is that the way
you should at least
can you just
have the
go to
courtesy of going?
Can I just go to wars, or do I have to come back and say what people want me to say about the wars? Can I go to the wars and have my own opinions, or do I have to have the opinions?
Not if you want to go back.
That's right. That's right. It's very interesting, this war tourism. How do I get on this war tourism?
Yeah.
I'd like to go to the Ukraine. I want to go. I want to go. I want to go to all this war tourism.
Do you have any awards?
As Elon and them know how to get on war tourism. But like you said, depends on what you say. If you want to go back, you got to echo the propaganda that they gave to you. As Ben Shapiro, I asked them how they go.
Awards that they can melt down and make bullets out of?
Joe, think about this. Do I seem like a guy that has a lot of awards?
Didn't you get one of those YouTube plaques when you hit 100,000?
I don't even know where they send it. I don't know where they're sending those YouTube plaques.
We've got a few of those.
But I like this idea of war tourism. I like the idea of going to a war and then coming back having a very black and white view.
Yes, I've been there.
I get it, and I know. And
right, the accent killing me. They killing me with that because the way he tried to. He really did something. Are you trying to tell me you haven't been? You haven't been. What? I mean, if you're going to talk about this for nearly a year, you should at least have the courtesy to go there. If you're going to talk about this for nearly a year, you mean a year since they started like bombing everybody and killing everybody? Not just killing the journalists, by the way, but killing their families. Like, you think that I want to go there? Guys, I'm a brave person. I've put myself in a lot of dangerous situations. I have a family. I would not go to Gaza right now. Someone could offer me $100,000 to go to Gaza and cover it on the ground right now. I wouldn't go. You could call me a coward, but like that's the reality because I have a family I have to take care of. And like I am so acutely aware of what happens to journalists that do not tout the Zionist propaganda that they literally pass out damn near on a script, it seems like. I'm well aware of what happened to journalists that go there. Like, if you go there, you're a target. They don't got enough intelligence to not attack refugee camps, but they somehow have enough intelligence to know exactly where journalists is and where their family is in another location and kill both of them on the same day. Yeah, I'm okay. I completely understand why Dave Smith wouldn't want to put himself in that situation. And people are getting mad at Joe Rogan, the usuals. saying that he's mocking. I mean, he was mocking them because he's mocking Joe Murray. The Billboard Chris. Let me show this to y'all. Billboard Chris complaining. Poor form. It's poor form by Joe Rogan. I thought it was hilarious. Actually, it wasn't poor form at all. It wasn't poor form at all. I'm like, this is probably the best. This is Joe Rogan that we all liked at the back in the day, right? He's mocking him because like so. Do I got to go on a tour of the Death Star to know that randomly bombing or destroying planets is like a bad thing? I don't feel like that's unnecessary. I don't have to go on it like Darth Vader doesn't have to take me on a tour of the Death Star for me to be like, yo, man, I think that I hear your justification. It was crazy. Like I know the Jedis were low key on some bullshit. Different conversation for a different day. But I just feel like no matter how much you take me on a tour of this really big Death Star, and it's really cool, coffee's great, all you can eat buffet, dope. But blowing up planets is horrible, guy. Like I don't need a tour to know that. I just don't. I didn't need to be like, I didn't need to live in the Ottoman Empire or anywhere in the area for me to know that the Turks genociding the Armenians was bad. Like that shouldn't have happened. I didn't need to live in the Congo or live in Belgium to know that the genocide that happened in the Congo was bad. That's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous argument to make. Now, if you're going to make an argument like, I know that this person did this at this exact time, it's because I was there, like, okay, then I guess that's a different conversation, but that's also like a different debate. That's like you're arguing about a situational circumstance that really it would behoove you to be authoritative by actually having the advantage of being on location. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the moral good, the morality of the situation. That's what we're talking about. Like, and this dude's just straight up lying. And Dave is basically trying to explain to him, like, bro, you don't have to be there to acknowledge basic facts. And for Joe to make fun of him the way he did, I'm glad that he didn't just like kind of I'm glad he didn't sit the fence like he usually does on the issue and actually make fun of him in the way that it was meant to be made fun of, because he's a clown for that. He really was. If this guy thinks he's an expert, maybe he should spar with real experts like Finkelstein. Exactly. But he won't. I mean, the dude thinks he called him, he said that Joe Rogan doesn't have enough Zionists on. If you ask me, and a lot of people who have casually watched Joe Rogan, like Joe Rogan has too many Zionists on. Why do you keep letting him get on the spread your propaganda? Right? Like he has too many Zionists on where he doesn't have an expert from the other side or an advocate from the other side to come on and challenge the lies. He does bring advocates from the other side on, but not in a situation often like what we saw between Dave Smith and Doug Murray. That is what I would like to see from somebody with that big of a platform. As much as I strongly dislike Piers Morgan's dumbass, like at least when he is advocating from the Zionist perspective or brings on somebody to advocate from the Zionist perspective, at least more often than not, he brings on somebody from the other side. So he don't let him talk as much. And, he's going to, will you admit that Hamas is a terrorist organization? Do you condemn October 7th? Will you condemn Hamas? But he at least brings on the other side. So Douglas Murray, how dare Lex Friedman speak on Alien? He's never been. Facts. Right, that's just a dumb argument. Like, as a person who I spent way too long studying for the LSAT, I did well. But as a person who has spent an inordinate amount of time studying for the LSAT to the law school back in the day, like that fallacious logic irks me to no end. But fallacious logic mixed with an air of audacity, like you're like, bro, you out here acting like, because he went to Oxford, right? So that's what his claim to expert, his claim to professionalism is. I'm an Oxford bachelor's degree grad. Like, okay, that doesn't make you an expert on Israel and Palestine. Actually, it doesn't really make you an expert on anything. there are people that I would consider experts who don't have a bachelor's degree in a damn thing. Right? There are people who have been very successful without any degree. I don't know where people got this idea now that being an expert means you have a degree. In my experience, as I've said time and time again, the dumbest people I know sometimes have the highest degrees. Like they have PhDs, they have master's degrees, and they have a very limited perspective on the world because they have the higher, at least in Western education, the higher you go, the more focused your understanding of an issue has to be, which actually at times puts you at a disadvantage when you're trying to understand the grander context of an issue. So like, just because if you are literally studying to be a PhD in this very, very, very super specific thing, then yeah, I guess that could make you potentially an expert in that. But it doesn't make you an expert on the general issue. Like being an expert, for example, in Bitcoin specifically doesn't necessarily make you an expert in cryptocurrency, trading cryptocurrency, understanding markets. Like it doesn't make you expert in all that. It could just mean that you're just really, 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 really good at understanding how Bitcoin works. Right? Like, but there are people who like I see people online on Twitter and shit making an argument. Well, he's been to Oxford. Where is Dave Smith gone? Like to do his own research clearly because he seems to be more of an expert on this issue than fucking Doug Murray. But yeah, I had to show you that clip. I want to move on real quick though, because we have to talk about the situation with Donald Trump and Harvard and how y'all, it's getting to the point, y'all. I mean, it's been really at that point. But when are the Trump people? I know some of y'all watch the show. And I'm not picking on y'all. I'm really not, because y'all know I had to go at the Joe Biden people the same way. I'm not picking on y'all, but at what point do y'all put the onus on yourselves to admit that y'all guy is doing a horrible job? That he is violating all the principles that y'all claim to have voted for him to push and support. Y'all say he stood on those principles. That he's not like Joe Biden. But instead, not only is he governing in a very similar authoritative way as Joe Biden, now is he supporting the genocide of Palestine to probably at this point worse than Joe Biden. The only difference is like Joe Biden actually funded the majority of the deaths, and Trump is now justifying and capitalizing on it and helping Israel capitalize on it. Like, but then he's doing stuff like this, y'all. He's doing stuff like this. Trump threatens Harvard tax exempt status after freezing $2 billion in funding. Like I said, and we're going to talk about this because I know some people are like, and somewhat rightfully so, oh, it's Harvard. Why do I care? I'm going to explain to you why you need to care. President Donald Trump has called for Harvard University to lose a valuable tax break hours after his administration announced it's freezing more than $2 billion in federal funds for the elite institution. The White House has demanded the oldest university in the U.S. make changes to hiring, admissions, and teaching practices, which says it will help fight anti-Semitism on campus. Since returning to office, Trump has pushed to reshape top universities by threatening to withhold federal funds that are mostly designated for research. I should also mention that Trump told Harvard specifically, I don't know if he says this to everybody, but he did tell Harvard they also need to better vet the ideologies of the students they allowed to attend their college before giving them admittance. Bruh. What does that even mean? Make sure that they agree with everything I say, basically. Make sure that they agree with my weird, strange, pro-Zionist ideology that's based in the cuckery of Christian Zionism, which is, once again, the biggest cuck of an ideology. Bro, that's the cuckiest ideology in history. They never, bro, Christians can't even go to Israel without getting spit on. But you want to talk, oh, Lord, I'm not going to get into it. So Harvard has become the first major university to reject his administration's demand on Monday, accusing the White House of trying to control its community, obviously. In a Tuesday morning post on social media, Trump threatened to go beyond withholding federal funds and targeted Harvard's tax-exempt status. Universities, as well as many charities and religious groups, are exempt from paying taxes on federal income. This valuable tax break, though, can be removed if the groups become involved in political activities or moved away from their stated purposes. So, I want to also show you guys before we get into that, as we have to dip into the matrix, I couldn't find the clip. We're going to go to, me and Sabby actually talked about this briefly. And I want to show y'all the clip from Trump trying to justify why he is doing something that hasn't been done in literally, I can't even tell you how long. Oh, since the 80s? It was since the 80s. That's when it was first done. Last time it's been done too. Like I said, we're going to dip into the matrix. There we go. You saying you weren't there? How can you speak on it if you weren't there, Trump? Okay, so I had to show y'all that. Like I said, I had to go into the matrix a little bit and show y'all that if y'all can hear it. But basically, I want y'all to understand a few things. First of all, did you notice as he was discussing this issue, he says, first of all, oh, that disgraceful woman and how she embarrassed the legacy of Harvard. Do y'all know who he's referring to? He's referring to Claudine Gay. Claudine Gay was the president of Harvard until last year in 2024. She was forced to resign. Well, they say she wasn't forced, but she announced her resignation and probably was forced. And Harvard, rightfully so, got a lot of flack for it. She was forced to resign because of the protests that were taking place, and somebody had to be the scapegoat. Trump mentioned her. Did not actually mention the new president. Don't y'all find that a little bit interesting? Now, you might be interested to know the new president, his name is Alan. His name is Alan Garber. Alan is Jewish, guys. Yeah, you probably could have guessed. But yes, Alan, the new president of Harvard, is actually Jewish. Which is probably why Trump went out of the way to not mention his name and went straight on to demonize the black president who was forced to resign. I just find that really interesting. I also find it really interesting because I think you and I both know that if a bunch of people were racially targeting black people on any given campus, which by the way has happened before, do y'all believe that Trump will go out of his way to be pulling federal funds, giving taxes himself? No, he wouldn't. Actually, let's be honest. Like, no, he wouldn't. It would probably be the opposite. He would somehow blame the black students as the cause and I don't know, call them domestic terrorists or some shit. Like, that's probably what would happen, right? Anything to appeal to his base, or at least the part of his base that cheers on this kind of bullshit, which, by the way, is beginning to wane. Like, he's kind of losing his base to some degree. As much as these influencers are trying to keep it alive, he's fucking himself over and over again. And it's because of stuff like this, right? As much as you might dislike Harvard, now you're going after you took their federal funding away. And as much as people want to be like, yeah, but it's Harvard, they'll be okay, which is true because principally Harvard and almost all Ivy Leagues primarily rely on endowments, right? The problem is he's removing their tax exempt status because he knows that those endowments that they get to the tune of hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars that end up being, that end up totaling out to billions by the end of every year, those endowments are tax deductible. Without that 501c3 tax exemption, those endowments will no longer be tax deductible. This would be a precedent set that had never been set before. The last time a college had its tax exempt status removed, ladies and gentlemen, was Bob Jones University. I'm gonna tell you a little something about Bob Jones University. Bob Jones University they're insane, bruh. It is an insane university that's based in South Carolina, and it's a type of school like a super religious, super Christian that you go we go when you're a child, like 4 or 5 years old, and you don't leave until you graduate college, ladies and gentlemen. I was talking about this with Sabby last night because me and Sabby both went to high school in Fayetteville, and we both were actually on the high school debate team in Fayetteville. She was at Southview, but I was, I think, a couple years before, and I was on Jack Britt's debate team. But one thing that always stood out in my mind was Bob Jones University, because they weren't even allowed to have intergender teams. So for public forum debate, it's 2 teams or 2 people on 2 teams. They couldn't even partner up with a woman and a man. Like it had to be 2 girls or 2 boys. So Bob Jones had their tax exempt status revoked back in the day because they were disallowing interracial marriage. Because like the only way, generally speaking, that you can have your tax exempt status removed as a university is to break a federal law. Interracial marriage is obviously legal. And they try to argue, well, we have religious exemption and it's part of our religious beliefs that we should be allowed. No, that's crazy. But that's that. So I'm talking about the only time that this has happened to a university, guys, was like the most extreme case of like, you're an idiot. You think that we're going to keep allowing you, we're going to allow you to literally ignore federal precedents, federal laws, the Constitution, like all that. And you're going to keep maintaining tax exempt status and receiving federal funding? No, that's the last time that something like this happened. Trump is trying to change the precedent so that now, because you don't support another country or because you allow the First Amendment to be exercised on your campus and be exercised in a way that doesn't necessarily support the ideology of the current administration, Trump is trying to set a precedent that, yeah, we can actually remove your tax exempt status. And we can make sure that even if you had money and would still be receiving money, because y'all know Harvard's donations actually went up. Their endowments went up after Trump went after them. But Trump is trying to set a precedent now that you will be taxed into oblivion, and therefore there will be less incentive for them to continue to donate to you, and you will suffer because of it. Because you don't agree with my ideology, which is actually not my ideology. It's the ideology of a genocidal nation from across the water. How is that America first? How is that putting America first? Eric Houzeau, I hate that the left gets blamed for the liberals' bullshit. Amen for that. Boy, I hate that's an everyday situation. That's an everyday situation, y'all. It's so irritating when you hear people they like go on this tangent about what Democrats do and how Democrats do this, but they don't say Democrats, they say leftists or today. Oh man, just as a brief aside, I think I gotta find this tweet to show y'all because there it goes. It was the first thing that popped up. It's the first thing that popped up. Look at God. I'm gonna show y'all this tweet because I couldn't believe it. I said, this is and it got so many retweets. I'm like, wow, this is why China's winning. This right here, because America is just dumb as fuck. This is why China's winning. This man, Joey Manorino, born in Philadelphia, could have guessed. It's been a bad morning for communists. The Pope just died. Klaus Schwab just resigned from the WEF. Things usually happen in threes. What's the rest of the day going to bring? Ladies and gentlemen, what in the actual fuck do those three things have to do with communism? Or two things have to do with communism? How are those things even remotely related to political ideology? Specifically, how are they related to communism? I just gotta know. And like the fact that this man got so many retweets, like what? I'm confused. Like, and what does that mean with a bad day for communists? Is it the Pope died? Like, is he saying that communists love the Pope? Is that what he's saying? And is that like, so is he like is he not like the Pope? Is he not like a right-wing religious guy? Like, I'm confused. And I'm a pretty logical guy. Doesn't take me that long to get to the point if there's a point actually to be made. This guy is not making a point, and that's my point. But things like that piss me off. I'm not even a communist, guys. I would consider myself a leftist, like a populist leftist, independent-minded kind of guy. But I don't like when people get mischaracterized, and I damn sure don't like when people get famous for being dumb as they mischaracterize other people. It reflects badly on the totality of the population. It reflects badly on all of us. It is y'all don't understand, y'all. I gotta go to barbershops and stuff. I live in Brazil, y'all know that. I gotta go to barbershops. I play soccer on on Tuesdays, Saturdays, play basketball. Recently found a group to start playing basketball with regularly during the week. You know, I coach my kids' teams. I talk to the parents, talk to friends out here, and I have to regularly explain the dumbacity that comes out of my country. I get so much practice speaking Portuguese at times, not because I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just in the mood to talk to some random people today about what's going on in the world. No, because I'm like, damn, I got to coach my kids' team today. Let me go ahead and figure out how to say some of these words or explain this situation that just happened today, because I know one of the parents is going to ask me about it, because I got a dumbass president that's the president of a dumbass country with a bunch of dumbass people. And now I got to learn how to explain it in Portuguese. Come on, man. That's crazy. Like but that's what I have to deal with. And then when I see tweets like that, bro, I be getting infuriated. I'm like, these motherfuckers really just be saying shit. And we get blamed. And we do get blamed for it. We do get, for example, they're like, oh man, how could you let Trump win? That's weird. I don't remember putting Kamala Harris as the nominee, nor did I remember denying anybody else from being viable as a nominee, as y'all lied about Joe Biden's mental health situation. And also spent the last 4 years screwing up the economy internationally and nationally, while trying to convince us that Joe Biden's actually doing a great job. I didn't know that was the left who did that. Y'all were so bad as a party, and Biden was so bad as a president, people literally looked at Trump and said, shit, I mean, it can't be worse than that. That is a y'all problem. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But I agree, Eric. That's some bullshit. The tax exempt status situation is crazy, because if he gets, I don't think he'll get away with it. I don't think he will. But it's not the Harvards as much that I'm worried about, because a Harvard can outlast the Trump presidency, reapply for tax exempt status, and hopefully go through. It's not the elite schools. It's not even the immediate future, because I'm pretty sure Harvard got money in the bank, because they all right. Okay. But everybody else, which is like the majority of the country, does not go to school like that. Right? They're going to go to a mid-tier to lower mid-tier, upper mid-tier school. Schools that don't have coffers like Harvard has. That doesn't have the endowments that Harvard has, because they don't have the alumni that Harvard has. Right? And when they get their tax exempt statuses removed, it will happen in the dark. When their schools begin to struggle and suffer, and they begin to have less admissions because of that, it will happen in the dark. And they will suffer. And then those schools will start to pass policies that will specifically deny a student's ability to engage in any type of activism on campus. And then once that happens, of course, it isn't just the protesting that stops. They literally just start teaching you the wrong thing. Once upon a time, you would have been able to take a class about maybe the history of Israel and Palestine, or the history of, for example, I took Eastern European history class that completely reshaped everything I thought I knew about Eastern Europe, the USSR, et cetera, et cetera. But all of a sudden, that starts changing. All of a sudden, your Middle Eastern history or Southeast Asian history classes start becoming less available or more tailored to push certain type of propaganda on behalf of the federal government. And like, in other words, shit rolls downhill. And everyone is paying attention because of Harvard being effective, or like when Khalil was arrested, it involved Columbia. But if this goes through, how do you think other schools are like, yo, Harvard couldn't beat this? Harvard couldn't beat this. What chance do we have? They will start moving their policies immediately. And not to mention, it won't just stop at Trump. Whenever Trump started calling everybody domestic terrorists during the BLM protests, during the George Floyd BLM protests right before the pandemic, or really, I guess, during the pandemic. Y'all remember I was very clear. I said, y'all who support Trump, stop with this domestic terrorist bullshit. Stop pushing that narrative, because you do know that this is a setup for Biden or whoever's next to use it, right? That's why the Democrats aren't really saying anything about it. They're just letting him cook, to be completely honest. But they kept those domestic terrorists, they kept letting them say it. Then Joe Biden gets in office. January 6th happens. And then who's the domestic terrorist now, motherfucker? Like we didn't warn you. And given the situation in Israel, Trump wasn't president when Bernie Sanders in the Senate introduced that anti-Semitism bill. Right? In other words, we know that Zionism has no party. They got both of them. They have no party and they have all the parties. So what incentive, if AIPAC is paying presidents and Congress people and people in these administrations to pass shit like this, if Harvard were to apply after Trump's administration leaves office, what chance do y'all think that Harvard has of actually getting their tax exempt status back? If AIPAC says no, and it's already been done. You get what I'm saying? Like, yeah, Trump, everybody's like, well, Trump won't be in office forever. Yeah, that's a statement. But what does that have to do with AIPAC? What does that have to do with Israel? What does that have to do with the genocide? Because we know both parties stand on this side of the issue. They stand with Trump, they stand with Netanyahu, they stand with the genocide. Hell, Bernie Sanders just got done doing what? Arresting Palestinian protesters. Somebody just unraveled a flag at his rally. And instead of embracing them and condemning a genocide, he screamed, Israel has a right to defend itself. That's how he handled that situation. So y'all think it's going to be different just because Trump's out? No, this is a terrifying precedent. Because if it could happen to Harvard, and if it can happen in a way that doesn't actually violate any known laws, right? Because the only way you can get that tax exempt status removed is if you break a law, federal law. And they're very clearly laid out. And it needs to be clear that you broke it. And it needs to be a court. There's a process to that. But, fuck the process, I guess. Eric Husso, thank you very much for the super chat. RFK Jr. may not be able to cure my autism, but I'm ever so hopeful that he may cure my anti-Semitism. Free pasta. RFK Jr. just as bad. You saw he had a meeting with the pharmaceutical industry, or with these, pharmaceutical CEOs, but also hospital CEOs about billing and whatnot. And I'm thinking to myself, you didn't have any actual people that work in medical billing during this conversation about the overcharging of people? Like, you just medical bills. You had all the CEOs who are incentivized to continue to do the overcharging. Okay, I guess that makes sense. RFK, yeah, Maha. That dude also pissed me off. Yo, Now we got to talk really quick. It's real quick about this. This El Salvador situation. Because I remember once upon a time, I said on here like maybe a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now. And I said, actually I came on live and I also came on here. Or excuse me, I also did a hotspot video. And I said, I don't know who in the hell believes that the Supreme Court and these federal courts are going to allow this shit to keep going down like this, but you have lost your mind and you do not know history. And I don't care how many times y'all try to state that bullshit State Department talking point about how if they just think that they're a terrorist, if they think that they're a third country, they can forego the due process that these people are entitled to and just deport people however they want to, and then deport them to places they aren't even supposed to be going to, like to El Salvador if you're from Venezuela, for example. And I said, it ain't gonna go down like that. He might have got away with it once, and that's why he tried to sneak it out. He tried to sneak it past everybody the first time he did it. He said he was going to deport people. He didn't make it know he was going to deport them in the way that he deported them, right? The fact that a lot of those people did not have criminal records, that he didn't even contact Maduro to take the Venezuelans back. He was claiming that they're part of a gang that these people had no affiliation with, and they had no proof of these people being affiliated with, right? Okay, so now fast forward. This is from today. Supreme Court blocks, for now, the new deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. The Supreme Court temporarily blocked the Trump administration from deporting any Venezuelans held in the Blue Bonnet Detention Center in West Central Texas under the Alien Enemies Act, a rarely used 18th century wartime law that allows for accelerated removal of foreigners deemed a threat by authorities. The government is directed not to remove any member of the putative class of detainees from the United States until further order of this court. Court said in a brief Saturday's note, Justice Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito dissented. Oh, what a surprise. In his dissent, Alito said, literally in the middle of the night, the court issued an unprecedented and legally questionable relief without giving the lower courts a chance to rule, without hearing from the opposing party, within 8 hours of receiving the application with dubious factual support for its order, without providing any explanation for its order. I refuse to join the court's order because we had no reason to think that under the circumstances, issuing an order at midnight was necessary or appropriate. That's a really weird. That would be, I mean, just from a technical standpoint, I guess that would be more of a reason for abstention, not for dissent. But okay. And there have been people, I mean, like, dog, I mean, the lower courts don't have time. They're trying, but they don't have time. And these people are being sent to prison. And once they get to El Salvador, what good is your federal court order at a lower court going to do? Like, what? It's not going to help anything. They're already in El Salvador. And that's a place where, believe it or not, people don't leave. Don't give a damn about your court order in the United States 3 weeks later. Bro, you're already there. That's why right now, Maduro is having to intervene and send his lawyers and and get his legal team involved from the federal government so that he can try to get some of them back into Venezuela. Like, because once they're out, like, they're gone. Once they're in that prison, there's nothing the U.S. specifically anyway can do to help them because they're not citizens of the U.S., even though we sent them there. We didn't deport. I don't like using the word deported because deporting entails that you try to send them back to their country. That's not what's happening. We're sending them to prison in another country, even though we know a majority of them didn't break a law. So, yeah, that's a massive L. A massive L for Donald Trump. The government response in the case came Saturday evening. The American Civil Liberties Union late Friday had warned that immigration authorities were moving to quickly restart removals under the Alien Enemies Act, despite the previous Supreme Court's restrictions on how it can be used. Late Thursday, a group of Venezuelans detained at the Blue Bonnet Detention Center was advised that they would be immediately deported. ACLU lawyer Lee Gallant told NPR that migrants at the Anson, Texas facility were being loaded onto buses for removal late Friday. So, Aleto's dissenting opinion is bullshit. Is what I just read. He's like, I don't understand why we had to move so fast. They just told you they were about to send them out the country and you weren't doing anything. And the federal courts apparently had, because we didn't receive like multiple opinions at the same time. No other opinions been released, not to my knowledge. So they were going to ship them out. That's why the Supreme Court got involved. But Aleto is Aleto, so I'm not surprised by this once again. But shout out in this particular case, the Supreme Court for doing the right thing. And to be completely real, right? The federal courts, the lower federal courts rather, they have a lot of authority, but obviously that can be overshadowed by a Supreme Court authority. And things get a little bit murky and mucky, and it's very difficult to get the federal courts involved to appeal anything. It's like a 0.7% chance that you can even get your appeal heard. It's very, very difficult. To win the appeal is very difficult. But then there's like the process of whether or not you can allow them to stay, right? Or they go and then you're just waiting for the case to be finished, assuming that they're going to be able to come back, which they probably wouldn't, obviously. So like things can get murky. You never know what could happen in a situation with the federal court because there's so many emotions involved that could take place. But if the Supreme Court is like, don't do shit until we tell you it's okay. Now we know that these people, at least, will have a fair opportunity to have their situations evaluated. And we also know now that at least under these circumstances, the Supreme Court is not okay with the way that Trump is handling the situation. And we will actually have an outline, a detailed outline of whether or not it's okay, why it's not okay, because it's not, why it's not okay. And hopefully this will not happen anymore going forward. The Supreme Court is actually giving us time to allow these people to have due process, which is what everyone has been asking for. No one is saying that we want open borders, even though I'm not as concerned about open borders as everybody else is. I mean, we need security at the border, but that's not the same thing. Like, yeah, just make sure that they're not a fucking terrorist. Like, isn't that what y'all do? I mean, y'all the ones who the FBI creates terrorists at the end of the day. I'm sure it should be pretty easy for y'all to figure out if they are terrorists. But in all seriousness, like, and y'all do know, like, if you've ever been to Latin America, it's kind of like open borders. Like Venezuela, Argentina, Colombia, Paraguay, like all of them can kind of just travel between one another, like kind of seamlessly. And there's not problems because of it. And they have more problems in their countries than the United States has. But there isn't a problem because and a lot of them primarily come into Brazil because Brazil's currency is worth more. It's a simpler process. And it's also Brazil, right? Like, you had a choice. It would be Brazil. But like the EU kind of has open borders too. Like there are some restrictions, but for the most part, like the EU, because of the way they structured the EU passport, it's kind of like open borders, as long as like you're from the area, right? And so like I don't understand why everybody kind of makes it this big ass deal. Like, oh, like I guess it's part of the narrative of U.S. exceptionalism, right? We have to pretend like we have to like maintain this air of exclusivity. Like, because everybody wants to come here. It's like, no, everybody's just escaping the bullshit that you did. Like, they're escaping the disasters that you create in their countries. That's why they want to go to your country. And yeah, there are opportunities that are there that may not exist in other nations, but it's because of the disasters you create in other countries, not because you're inherently better than those countries that are inherently better than the countries that the people are running away from, right? Like, if I always say this, if Brazil was actually allowed to pursue the potential of Brazil, the United States would not even be like, they wouldn't be negotiating with anybody. It would be like Brazil and China would be doing all the negotiating around the world because Brazil has things that China doesn't even have. And their diversity, I would say, is probably advantageous. It is a country with so much diversity, but they use it in this way that's so advantageous to the nation for the most part that it's like no other country would be able to compete with the innovation that would have been allowed if they weren't being stifled by the U.S. economy and bullshit trade regulations, and the amount of agriculture, the fact they don't have natural disasters like that. We don't, once again, no hurricanes, guys. No hurricanes, no tornadoes, no earthquakes. Paradise. You have agriculture. They have oil. They have everything you could possibly need or want. And I mean everything. Which is probably why I'm on my third kid, because I said they got everything that you could possibly need. Or not playing. But in all seriousness, we gotta keep an eye on this type of stuff, because Trump is trying to do, and I don't know if it's, bro, I feel like, just as a brief aside, I feel like Trump is losing control, y'all. I feel like he's feeling the pressure. He is realizing, dog, I am not actually in control of a damn thing. Like, I don't have control of the international community like I thought I would. This war between Russia and Ukraine is not ending like I thought I would. I thought I could get it to end within 20 days or 2 days or 3 days or whatever. It's not happening. No one is doing what I'm telling them to do. He did the tariff situation. And I told y'all during the tariff situation, I said, this is a dumb move. It's like he decided, I'm going to flex my muscles and you know, put like a dog, like put up his hackles and show his teeth to see how the world will react, right? Like, and bark at them and see like, oh yeah, let's see if they're really about it. And then the world reacted, and then he's like, oh no, I'm just kidding, I'm joking, I'm not really gonna do. Oh, it's too late now. It's too late. The consequences of what Trump did with those tariffs have already started taking place. Jayada. They already started. So here we are. And he's nervously scrambling to find these issues to hyper focus on, where he can pull at the heartstrings of the dumbest, most ignorant, racist, loyal part of his base. Right? That's what he's doing. He has to now. Because he's realizing slowly, but quicker than I thought he would, yeah, I actually don't have control over shit. And I need to find a distraction so that people don't realize I don't have control. Because that's what we saw, like Joe Biden would do stuff like that. But Biden has Trump has a way bigger ego than Biden. And to be frank, Trump in 2016 looked like he had more control. He looked like he had more control. He obviously wasn't completely in control, but he looked like he had more control. He looked like he knew what he was doing, even if we disagree with it. He looked like the choices that he was making were his. And right now, it looks like all the choices that he's making when he does make a choice is for Israel. And every choice that he's making outside of that is a distraction that he knows will be debunked, that he knows will have to be seen in court and be thrown out. I've said that over and over. I'm like, I don't know why people are getting all excited about this. I'm like, bro, there's so much stuff that's about to get thrown out. It's not even worth. It's like he's wasting our money, because it's who do y'all think pays for all that shit? Whenever the U.S. government does something that we know is going to get to a Supreme Court or a federal court, and they have to spend months or days or whatever deliberating it and adjudicating it, who do y'all think pays for all that? We do. So, like, why are you doing it? Oh, I got to create a distraction because I need people to think that I'm in control, and I really don't have any control over this bus. Jesus has taken the wheel. Or somebody's taking it. But it ain't Trump. Do you have fentanyl zombies in Brazil like America? Fentanyl not a big deal here. Apparently, it's a small problem, but it's nowhere near a problem like it is in the U.S. Like I've said pretty often, like I feel like fentanyl as a problem is definitely created, it's manufactured. It was because, you know, the drug war was like not coming to an end. Yeah, I guess you could say to some degree the drug war was coming to an end because marijuana was being legalized. And then you had people undercutting the marijuana industry, right? The big weed, if you will, right? And then you can't really arrest people for having weed and selling it. I mean, you can for selling it, but like it's very hard to know if they bought it from somebody, right? It's hard to know if I lived in California and bought weed from a grower that's off the grid, like you don't know if I bought this weed from them, so you can't really hit me with it. But if a bunch of people start smoking fentanyl, now we can renew the drug war and start placing blame and et cetera, et cetera. And now also you got to also think, now you have to go to, if you live in a state where it's legal, now you have to go to dispensary, because people began, at least in Florida, once dispensaries became legal medically, people began to undercut the dispensaries. They began to sell it for a lower price, which makes sense, right? And they started growing it in their homes. So yeah, we don't have that type of problems. We don't have that type of problem like that in Brazil, like they do in the States. Last thing I want to discuss has to do with this, actually has to do with these policies from Trump and the ramifications of these policies. And we said this not just regarding the deportations, like what we see with Venezuela or with the Venezuelans, excuse me, but we also said, like, it's not like these deportations from these protests for Palestine. Y'all think it's going to stop with U.S. citizens? They literally, once you literally make the argument, yeah, permanent residency en route to citizenship, while your wife's an American citizen, isn't enough to gain you due process. Yeah, that means it isn't going to take long for them to start arresting citizens, or at least trying to, for whatever reason, as long as it fulfills their goals. And this is what's happening. It already happened, y'all. A U.S. citizen wrongfully arrested by Border Patrol in Arizona, held for nearly 10 days. Official claimed Jose Hermosillo, who was visiting Arizona, was without proper immigration documents. Immigration officials detained the U.S. citizen for nearly 10 days in Arizona, according to court records and press reports. As the NPR affiliate Arizona Public Media first reported, 19-year-old Jose Hermosillo, a New Mexico resident visiting Arizona, was detained by Border Patrol agents in Nogales, a city along the Mexican border about an hour south of Tucson. According to the Border Patrol criminal complaint, on the 8th of April, a Border Patrol official found Hermosillo without proper immigration documents. As a U.S. citizen, I don't know about y'all, I don't really walk around with immigration documents. The most I might have is an ID. Because I don't have immigration documents because I'm a fucking citizen. I'm not expecting to be stopped and asked about whether or not I don't walk around with Brazil with my immigration documents. I have some, but I don't need to, because I don't get targeted for being black in Brazil, which I'll talk about in a second. And they claimed that the young American had admitted to entering the U.S. illegally from Mexico. I'm gonna say that again. A Border Patrol official found Hermosillo without the proper immigration documents and claimed the young American had admitted to entering the U.S. illegally from Mexico. 2 days later, the federal court document notes that Hermosillo continued to claim he was a U.S. citizen. In other words, Border Patrol lied. Wow. I can't believe it. On the 17th of April, a federal judge dismissed the case. Hermosillo's wrongful arrest and prolonged detention comes amid the escalating attacks by the Trump administration on immigrants in the U.S. Since Donald Trump took office, the administration has emboldened immigration officers to arrest and deport undocumented people, including foreign students whose visas have been revoked, leading to a series of errors. Under the Trump administration's theory of the law, the government could have banished this U.S. citizen to a Salvadorian prison and then refused to do anything to bring him back. Mark Joseph Stern, a legal analyst for Slate, wrote on Blue Sky, "This is why the Constitution guarantees due process to all. Could it be more obvious?" That is, I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. When we're talking about due process, and I cannot stress this enough, due process in general, in the Constitution specifically, in general, is a restriction on the government, federal, local, and everything in between, municipality, all that. It is not a restriction on the citizen. That's why this argument when people make when they came into the country, they didn't care about due process. That's not how due process works, you dumbass. It's not how due process works. It's a limitation on the government, and it's a guarantee that you have once you come into the country. Because of situations like this 19-year-old was held for 10 days. For what? For driving from New Mexico to Arizona while being Latino. Not even being here on a visa status. Not being a legal resident. He's a citizen. So not only are you guaranteed due process because, you can be a citizen and get arrested, but, you have to be guaranteed due process. Because I ask you this question, as I always ask situations like this, and I will continue to ask situations like this. If Joe, was it Jose or was it Joe? I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, but I want to make sure I get his name right. Jose, yeah. Jose Hermosillo. If his name was George White, middle-aged Caucasian male, driving a Honda Odyssey from New Mexico to Tucson, do you think that they would have asked him for his immigration documents? Do you believe they would have asked him for his immigration documents? Probably not, right? Which is why you have to guarantee due process. Because when things like implicit or explicit racial bias come into play, stereotyping comes into play, profiling comes into play, which it always does. When we're talking about the overall police state, criminal justice system, or immigration system in the United States, it always comes into play. Due process is the only chance that you have to not end up, in this particular case, potentially in a Salvadorian prison, guys. Due process is the only chance you have to not end up indefinitely in a detention center, like some of these kids and some of these parents have been under not only the Trump administration, the Biden administration, the Obama administration, the Trump administration before. That's why we need due process. Christian, yo, Niko, read my super chat when you get a chance. Oh, did I miss it? My apologies. Yo, Niko, FIU police now working with ICE agents. I heard that. I read an article about that the other day. But actually, FIU, unfortunately, has worked with ICE agents before. So, and it's a long story, but I know a young woman who she's not even Latino. She's from Bangladesh. And it was a problem, her family had to resolve with her particular immigration status. Her father had residency or citizenship, but she didn't have it yet, was in the process of doing it. The school was helping her, but they tried to deport her anyway. It was a whole thing. So yeah, that's FIU. But that's run by. But that's also Florida for you too. Florida boy, I ain't never seen a state. Oh, I guess Texas would be the other state, right? But Florida as a state, they just are shameless. They can make so much money off of immigrants, off of undocumented immigrants, dog. They make so much money. Their state probably could not run effectively or efficiently without undocumented immigrants. I'm talking about I'm talking about Uber drivers. I know a dude who came from Brazil. He was a white Brazilian, actually. Came from Brazil, overstayed his visa. But before, because he got you can do 90 days and you can extend. But as soon as he got there, bro, he got his license and got rented a car and did Uber. So he was actually able to overstay because how do you say it? When you have to renew, there you go. The renewal process for your Uber stuff is every year or so. So he was able to overstay for 2 years or something like that. He was never stopped and no one cared. But he was undocumented and he made his contributions to the state and he went back to Brazil at some point. But Florida will sit there and be we're the harshest state on immigration. No, you're not. Y'all pretend, y'all be front like you are, and they're taking all the monies. They have agencies set up in Florida, y'all, where you can come here undocumented. You go to the states undocumented. I'm not going to say which countries I know for a fact participated in it because I got personal friends that have used this agency. But you go to the state, you go there from whatever country you're from, Colombia, Argentina, Chile, I was going to come from Paraguay. And what you do is you get this agency to get you a job and you give them a portion of your paycheck because the agency is guaranteeing that you have immigration documents, and the company is just taking the agency at its word because there's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing that goes on out there. And that's how, and like, so all of South Beach is just full of undocumented immigrants. But once you get a job and then you get a license, which you can do, it's actually like because like once you get a residence, if you get people just sign over leases because they build up a network, right? So that when they get a lease, you don't go through the whole process. You just sign over your lease or sublet. So now you have proof of residency. You can put a light bill in your name, right? It just becomes easier and easier and easier to overstay. And Florida is just known for pretending like they give a shit about the undocumented immigrants, but they actually don't. They need them. They can't function without them. So it's just funny. But yeah, man, like at the crux of all this, that is why due process is so fucking important. I can't stress like this violation of the Constitution from Trump, whether it be with Khalil, whether it be with any of the Palestinian protesters, whether it be with this tax exemption issue, right? With Harvard, all of it. You need due process. You need to respect the Constitution. And we have to understand what the purpose of the Constitution is rather than what they're trying to convince us the purpose of the Constitution is. Because they're trying to convince us the Constitution was like the Bill of Rights, right? The Bill of, these are rights that are considered to be, at least in the United States, human rights. That's why we put them there. Right? That's why the founding fathers put them in there. They're trying to convince us that the Bill of Rights is made to protect the government and not us. Right? They're trying to convince us that the Constitution was made to protect them, not us. To put limits on us and not them. Hell, if you've noticed, guys, so remember when prohibition was passed? One of the most interesting things about the prohibition situation when it comes to the Constitution, I feel like, is the fact that it was a statement that set a precedent to remind people what the Constitution was for. Because there was an amendment passed for prohibition back in the day, which put limits on people, not the government. And to my knowledge, that was the first time that happened in the U.S. Constitution. That is probably largely how the amendment was taken away. I know it was voted out, but I'm saying like when the argument was probably being made in court, is like that's not what the Constitution is for. You can almost guarantee it's not what every other amendment in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is about limits on the government and the guaranteed rights of people. It is not a limit. That is for the states to do. That's for the states to decide. It's not a limit on what people can and can't do as far as like their liberties are concerned, their civil liberties. It's not a limit. It is this is your guaranteed right. And if there are limits to that, those are laws that we pass later on, but it has nothing to do with the constitutional right. And even if we pass laws, the go-between, the middleman, if it were, to handle a situation that seems like it is not jiving, whatever this law is not jiving with the right that's guaranteed by the Constitution, that is the due process. That is what it's for. Because the interpretation of either of those things can be wrong, right? Can be abused, can be manipulated. That's why lawyers get paid as much as they do sometimes. Because you got to be if you're really good at manipulating it, you make a lot of money. If you're really good at figuring out who's manipulating the interpretation of these laws or the Constitution, you also make a lot of money. If you're a judge who can see through the manipulation, you also make a lot of money. If you're a judge that accepts blindly when these laws are being manipulated, like a Clarence Thomas or a fucking Judge Alito, for example, you also make a lot of money. But the whole process in and of itself, even though we know the criminal justice system in the U.S. is a sham, that's once again why it's even more important to just remember what due process actually is and what it's for. Because a 19-year-old just sat in jail for 10 days. No, he didn't sit in jail. My apologies. I can't say that. He didn't sit in jail because he wasn't arrested. He was detained for not having immigration documents. He sat in an immigration detention center. That is not jail because he did not commit a crime. And he was able to be held for 10 days in an immigration center because we couldn't prove that he committed a crime because we didn't arrest him for anything. But we don't need proof that he's not an immigrant until the rubber meets the road and the judges start asking questions. Then it's, damn, okay, I guess we got to go ahead and just bite the bullet. Sorry, yeah, man, he's a U.S. citizen. Ladies and gentlemen, how the hell is this making America great? How does this make America great or safe? How? And how can people not just admit, y'all don't like black and brown people and y'all are really upset about it? Y'all upset that there are so many that live in the U.S. like there haven't always been a lot of them that lived in the U.S. Even though, this particular, white people are still outpacing everybody else. I don't know why they're so upset about it, but the people who are, why? I got more respect for somebody just admit you're racist. Just admit that there's a jealousy factor. Just admit that there's a fear. Admit it. Just admit it. Admit that you don't want to compete. Not really. You don't want to compete with the experience of somebody who had to learn everything that you had to learn, but also has the experience of the adversity that they experienced because of their ethnicity or nationality, or the experiences of their parents. And just admit it. Or admit that you resigned as cuck. And Yahoo paid your bills, and he probably has a video of you and Epstein on camera. Just admit that, bro. But the justification behind violating someone's constitutional rights and claiming it's to make America safe, to make America great, to protect them from terrorism, et cetera, et cetera. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Y'all are full of shit. Arresting a 19-year-old, a U.S. citizen, and this was, once again, this is a natural conclusion. And I literally said on Twitter 2 days ago, I said, they're threatening. Because they were all, by the way, over the Palestine stuff, they were already threatening to arrest U.S. citizens, by the way. They were threatening to revoke citizenship. Because they were going to use the State Department law. It's this, and when you get into terrorism, all of a sudden, we know how we know the stories that have come out of Guantanamo Bay. Your rights no longer matter once the word terrorism gets thrown out there. But somebody said, where do you think that's going to happen? Somebody argued with me. I didn't respond, but they were like, no, that's not going to happen. Why would you think that? That would never. And literally 2 days later, or we find out it happened really 2 weeks ago, but later, a couple of days later, we find out a 19-year-old U.S. citizen was arrested for not having immigration papers that he would never have because he's not an immigrant, and was held for 10 days. And what is Trump hadn't said a word. Hadn't said a word about it. And the fact that Border Patrol lied and said that he admitted to being a Mexican, or to being undocumented, that he admitted to being in the U.S. illegally, and which is probably what caused him to be in the detention center for 10 days. Because now ICE, they have a vested interest in protecting their own ass, because that's a lawsuit. Ooh, hey, whatever he was driving, the next time they pull him over, it's going to be much nicer than what he was driving when they pulled him over last time. I promise you that. And it's going to be on the U.S. dollar. It's going to be on the U.S. tax dollars account. It's going to be us that pays for it. And you ain't going to hear them complain about it. Complain about reparations. Oh, who's going to pay for that? The same person who about to pay for this 19-year-old kid who was held for 10 days unlawfully? Y'all? But y'all going to be quiet about it because y'all don't want people to know that this is exactly what's happening. And y'all don't want to answer the question that I asked earlier. If that was Joe Smith, 40-year-old white man, driving a blue Honda Odyssey from New Mexico to Tucson, Arizona, would they have pulled him over and asked for immigration papers? And we all know the answer to that. We know the answer. The question is, y'all don't want to wrestle with it. Okay, so y'all gonna keep paying these bills, I guess. Y'all ain't gonna complain about it when it's that, though, right? Y'all not gonna complain about it because y'all don't want people to talk about it. Okay. I agree, man. I'm the same way. Christian said, I like it when people are upfront and upfront with their hatred and bigotry. Yeah, bro, don't hide it. I need to know. I tell people all the time, I say, bro, I know so many people. I don't want to have to go to work, go to a restaurant, go to some area where I gotta guess, especially if my livelihood is involved and invested. or my family is around and like you're around them all the time, or it's my kid's teacher, or something like that. I don't want to have to figure out the hard way that you had these preconceptions, these implicit racial bias that I never knew about that was affecting the decisions you made regarding me. Just be honest about it. I can't remove myself from the situation. I can make a choice about how to proceed if I know how you feel, because everybody got their ways of thinking. Shit, I got more respect for you. Hey, man, shit, appreciate you letting me know instead of just screwing me over and stabbing me in the back without even giving me a chance to remove myself from the situation. You're still a piece of shit for being racist, but it is what it is. I'm not going to change you. Be honest about it. Be upfront. Don't be a clown. Don't be trying to pretend like you're doing it for I'm not racist, but I'm just going to make all these racist decisions. I'm not racist. I'm doing this for the good society. I'm not racist. I just hate Muslims. I'm not racist. I just hate Arabs. I'm not racist. I just, I'm just bombing these countries instead, like all these brown and black countries, and robbing and pillaging them instead of robbing and pillaging the white countries, the white Western nations. I'm not racist. It just looks like that. I'm not black. I'm OJ. Man. Ooh, look at this guy. Michael Bury. This dude is so jealous of the white man. It's ridiculous. Just admit that you're obsessed with the white man. Jealous of what, bro? What? Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that, bro, but listen, dog. I'm really not. Why would I be just like, first of all, and all y'all who are white, y'all know, I rock with y'all. Y'all know that. But the ones who would claim that somebody like myself would be jealous of you, I need you to understand something. Y'all have to scapegoat literally everyone in the world because y'all are finally realizing that this social contract that y'all have with one another isn't worth shit anymore. And y'all actually have to compete. And that the people y'all thought were on y'all side, the white people, the white elite at the very, very top, y'all thought was on y'all side, y'all realized, oh shit, they have been using us this whole time and don't give a shit. They're letting us die. Hell, in some cases, they're hoping you die. And we all try to warn y'all. All of us. We were like, hey man, y'all should be paying attention to this. I don't know why y'all be so worried about black people. Y'all should be worried about these motherfuckers. No, it's your fault. It's those Mexicans coming and picking strawberries that are destroying the country. Oh, okay. Then who's the one shooting up all the schools? Well, it's because of y'all destroying our economy and making us uncomfortable. We need safe spaces. Like what's that one cat, that one influencer that went on? I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. The white Jewish guy talking about Israel on campus. Y'all SJW ass motherfuckers think that we're jealous of you? No, if anything, we laugh at you on a regular basis. We laugh at y'all. The Charlie Kirks of the world, the Bishop Pierre of the world. Y'all are fucking corny. Because your whole life is based in the lie. We know that y'all really don't have any friends. And the fact that it took y'all so long to figure out that the same government that been fucking over everybody else also don't give a fuck about y'all. And y'all are now reacting to something that we already knew. Why the hell would we be jealous of y'all? Y'all are idiots. The white people who were standing in solidarity with us because they already knew would never make an accusation like that. They're like, yeah, they probably be like, yeah, y'all were right. We tried to tell them. We saw what was happening too. The white people that were standing side by side with the Black Panthers, not one of them would say that one side is jealous of the other side because they're like, nah, we all saw what the hell was going on. But y'all thought that y'all were exceptional because y'all were getting extra help, because y'all didn't have to deal with the Fair Housing Act, because y'all didn't have to deal with discrimination, because y'all were allowed to own banks, because y'all were allowed to have things that no one else was allowed to have. They literally had to pass laws to stop black people from passing y'all motherfuckers because they knew it was coming. And y'all think we're jealous of y'all? No, y'all are obsessed with us because you're jealous of us. Because y'all have this irrational fear of us, which is also weird. Like y'all like think that like all of us got hands, all of us carry guns, and all of us could just fuck y'all up at a moment's notice. I mean, nice thought, I guess, but that's not like the reality. There's a lot more Carltons out there than you think. Okay. And like y'all think that we have the same mentality as y'all. Y'all are worried that if we were put in the same position that y'all were put in, that we would react in the way that y'all react after getting fucked over by the same group of people for hundreds of years. That's what that's about. So But I guess. Woo! Oh, sorry, that was funny, man. That was a good laugh. Appreciate you. Appreciate that laugh, man. Chima Madu, look up Orania, an all-white town in South Africa. Oh, I heard about that. The one that's trying to maintain their culture that isn't their culture, which is super weird. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, all-white town in South Africa. It's like, man, y'all, we're so jealous of y'all that y'all keep coming into our fucking countries and won't leave. Someone want to square that circle for me? Bruh, you want to talk about being jealous? Yo, I was talking the other day with my homeboy who lives out here in Brazil. And he was like talking about how like it's so common. So recently I've been learning that there are a lot of English people and Irish people that move to Brazil. And like they come here with the intention on visiting, but they find them a nice little carioca, they don't leave. Right? They do not leave. And it's funny because my friend had talked about feeling a little bit insecure because even though he speaks Portuguese too, he's like, he speaks it fluently. It's not really the issue. But he said, bro, I don't have that flavor that y'all got. I was like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? What flavor? He's like, man, I'm talking about like the flavor. I get what he was trying to say. Like, he was basically saying like, dog, like, I just don't, I don't got it. And out here, it's more obvious in like England where he's from. It's not like everybody's British, like you got your different variations of English, right? Caribbean and the ones who were born and raised there, upper middle class. Oh, yeah. But like basically everybody British. Out here, he's like, bro, I can speak as much Portuguese as I want to. I will never be carioca. And that's what he was saying, basically, like, I'm never going to be like a black guy with your style and be able to carry yourself in that way. And he was always like self-conscious about it because of his girlfriend, who's carioca. So, bruh, I laughed at him because I was like, bruh, this is kind of a silly thing to be. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he was like, she likes you because of you. But it was just interesting that he had that conversation with me because I guess just because he was having it with me because there's not a lot of American black people that speak Portuguese. And so he was like, from your perspective, how do people treat you? And actually, to be completely honest with you, it's the shit. Being black in Brazil and actually speaking Portuguese is dope because everybody treats you like a superstar because they love black American culture. So like, it was interesting having that conversation with him. And I never knew he kind of felt that way because I always felt like being white in Brazil is kind of cool because you're an outlier. Brazil's the second blackest country in the world, y'all. So like, I felt like, yeah, it's probably cool being like an outlier in this situation. But he said it was actually a point of insecurity because of how much Brazil actually embraces their black culture. So like, yeah. Anyway, boy, that is hilarious. Woo. Y'all should come to a Black Thanksgiving dinner one day, and y'all should see. You will see how jealous black people are. Oh man. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of For the People Podcast. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share this video. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you go to Hotspot. Check us out there. I got another Hotspot video. Dope Hotspot video dropping today about the Carmelo Anthony case, the Carmelo Anthony Metcalf case, the young high school student in Texas that stabbed another one at the track meet. You'll need to watch that. I'm dropping it today, probably in a couple of hours here in a second. Daqui a pouco. It's going to drop. It's going to talk about the interaction that Metcalf's dad had with Jake Lang at this Protect White Americans protest. But it's also going to break down how all these right-wing SJWs are fucking frauds. They're all frauds because there's a case happening right now that's almost identical, and none of them are discussing it. It's like literally parallel. It's happening parallel in the same state with the same claim of self-defense, also involving 2 high school students and a knife. But one side is talking about, won't stop talking about the Carmelo Anthony case, but they haven't even mentioned this one. Why do you think that is? Check out the Hotspot video, you'll figure it out. All right. You can support the show by becoming a member on YouTube, becoming a Patreon member, donating through CashApp. All that stuff is in the description. You can click on it and support the show however you can. Obviously, liking and sharing is very valuable, as many eyes we can get on the show that'll help promote it. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.